What do you do when the person you've built your entire world with asks you to do one simple, helpful thing that ends up shattering that world into a million pieces? It was a Tuesday, the sky over Chicago the color of a dull bruise, when Sarah called me. "Can you pick up the kids from school early?" she'd asked, her voice a little too bright, a little too cheerful. "I have a last-minute client meeting across town." I was in my home office, staring at architectural blueprints that suddenly felt meaningless. A strange, cold feeling washed over me, the kind you get right before the lightning strikes. I agreed. Of course, I always did. But as I hung up, I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I wasn't just picking up my children. I was picking up the first thread of a lie that would unravel everything. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. The drive to the school was automatic. My mind was a frantic blur, replaying the last few months. The late nights she blamed on work, the way she'd started guarding her phone like it was a state secret, the screen always angled away from me. The new, expensive lingerie I'd found in the back of her drawer, tags still on that she'd never worn for me. She'd become distant, a beautiful, cold stranger living in my house. When I'd tried to talk to her, to bridge the growing chasm between us, she'd turned it on me. "You're being paranoid, James," she'd say, her voice dripping with a condescending pity that made me feel small and foolish. "Maybe you should talk to someone. All this stress from your new project must be getting to you." She was a master manipulator, twisting my love and concern into a weapon against me. The villains in this story, my wife and whoever she was meeting, felt untouchable, wrapped in a bubble of arrogance and deceit. I picked up Lily and Tom, their innocent chatter about their day, a painful counterpoint to the storm brewing inside me. Instead of driving home, a reckless impulse took over. I drove towards the city, towards the boutique hotel on Rush Street she'd mentioned a client was staying at last week. It was a long shot, a paranoid husband's wild goose chase. But I had to know. I parked across the street, my heart hammering against my ribs, and then I saw her. She walked out of the lobby laughing, her head thrown back in a way I hadn't seen in years. Beside her was a man, tall and smug, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. It was Mark, a partner from her law firm. The man we'd had over for dinner. The man who'd shaken my hand and called my wife a firecracker. The sight of them together, so comfortable, so intimate, broke something deep inside me. The world went silent. The sounds of the city faded away. There was only the image of them, burned into my retinas. That was the moment the loyal, loving husband died, and something else, something cold and strategic, began to take his place. For the next 2 months, I lived a double life. To Sarah, I was the slightly withdrawn but still compliant husband, convinced by her gaslighting that the problem was my own insecurity. But in secret, I was a detective in the ruins of my own life. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop who looked at me with weary, knowing eyes. He didn't need the details. He'd seen this story 1,000 times. Proof started to trickle in, then it became a flood. Receipts from hotels in Lincoln Park, photos of them kissing in a quiet booth at a downtown diner, phone records detailing late-night calls that lasted for hours. Every piece of evidence was a fresh stab to the heart, but I didn't let myself feel it. Emotion was a luxury I couldn't afford. I took every ounce of pain, every sleepless night, every wave of nauseating humiliation, and I forged it into a weapon. I was no longer just gathering proof for a divorce. I was building a case to dismantle her life, piece by piece. The plan began to form in the quiet hours of the night, fueled by black coffee and a burning, righteous anger. Sarah's arrogance was her greatest weakness. She believed she was smarter than me, that she had me wrapped around her little finger. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Our joint accounts or personal credit cards, I had access to everything. I meticulously documented every dollar she spent on him, the lavish dinners, the weekend getaways, the gifts. Then I moved on to her career. Mark was a partner, but Sarah was on the cusp of making partner herself. Her firm had a strict code of conduct policy, one that I knew she and Mark were violating. An anonymous tip, carefully worded and backed by a single, damning photograph sent from a burner email, would be enough to trigger an internal investigation that would incinerate both their careers. The final trap was social. Sarah had built an image of herself as the perfect mother, the successful lawyer, the pillar of our community. Her annual charity gala, a massive event she chaired, was in 3 weeks. It was her crowning achievement, the night she paraded her success in front of everyone who mattered. It would be the perfect stage for her downfall. The night of the gala arrived. Sarah was radiant in a backless gown, moving through the crowd with an easy, practiced grace. She had no idea she was a dead woman walking. I played my part, the proud husband at her side, smiling and shaking hands. At 8 p.m., just as she was about to take the stage to give her keynote speech, it began. An email landed in the inboxes of every single person on the guest list, every partner at her firm, every member of the charity board. The subject line was simple: the truth about Sarah Jennings. Inside was everything. The photos, the hotel receipts, the detailed expense reports of her affair paid for with our family's money. A link to a private blog containing my narrative of the last few months, a story of betrayal and manipulation. I watched from the back of the room as a wave of whispers turned into a tidal wave of shocked silence. Phones lit up across the ballroom. People started looking at her, not with admiration, but with a mixture of pity and disgust. Her smile faltered. She looked at me, her eyes wide with confusion, then dawning horror. I just held her gaze, my expression a cold, empty mask. Her world wasn't just collapsing, it was being publicly, systematically demolished. She stumbled off the stage, her perfect life in tatters. Mark was already gone, having slipped out a side door like the coward he was. I left without a word. I didn't need to. The silence was louder than any accusation. The legal fallout was brutal. The firm fired them both. The charity board removed her. Her friends abandoned her. I filed for divorce the next morning, and with the mountain of evidence I had, got everything. Full custody of the children, the house, and a settlement that left her with nothing but the consequences of her choices. Sometimes late at night, I stand in the quiet of my house and look out at the city lights. The anger is gone, replaced by a hollow, haunting peace. I won. I destroyed her. But it doesn't feel like a victory. It just feels over. I protected my children and salvaged my future, but a part of me will forever be that man in the car, parked across from a hotel, watching his life burn to the ground. The end.